Alright, folks, welcome back, everyone. 皆さん、おかえりなさい。今日は445日目です。Is day 445. We are one day after leveling up. Level 43. It was on the short side. We got plenty of other things going on at the same time. I think this is a split day. Yeah, most of this stuff is going to be split later. We'll end up picking up these three in 7 minutes or so. Let's see, tomorrow, one set. So these will be combined with the next set. And then, let's see. Trying to see if, I think it's every 5 days from now on. So, day 2, 3, 4, and we have a 0 day, and then we have lessons. So it looks like there's at least 2 or 3 days back to back that now we have like a day with our current unit and a day without. So that's where we're gonna take our extra days and then reinvest it in Boom Pro or something else that's going on. What is today? The 29th of March. 31. So today's 29, 30, 31. Wouldn't be too bad. Then we 31, the 31st of March is when I'm going to be writing a tentative take on Boom Pro after the N5 cycle. So more on that later. Trying to collect my thoughts on that at the moment. Things are getting later and later. My start times are getting a little bit later. All right. Okay. Dang, lots of characters. Oh yeah, that's right. The vast majority of its characters, because we have fewer vocabulary words this time around. Sugoku. Enko. Ofuda. Ofuda. Nisemono. Oops. Nureginu. Agaru. Oh, so loud. Uh-oh. Grip.
握手
Akushu. Oh no, not grip. Shake hand. This is grip.
握力
Ryoku. Or grip strength. Little
潜る
Moguru and Kuguru.
円滑
Enkatsu.
Muragaru
Garu.
Kakko. Noki.
No. Oh, we'll slide. Definitely go. Oh no, it's not do. Uh.
滑る
Numa? No.
承諾
Shotaku.
Nigiru
Not pivot, right? Grip. Oh no, it's the same. It's just a grasp or grip. Thought it might be different. Sounds a bit rough. Oh, whoops.
同様 包み
Tsumi.
夕方
MAKU. I wrote more. 誠に。
誠に。
軍艦島。ゆる。伺い。
YOLO? Okay. Just kidding.
沼田。
Something like that. Fine.
高校。
Oops.
駐車場。
Oh.
唱える。
駐在。
新鋭。
薄まる。
優雅。
電動。頻度。営利。巡る。
So, wait. Oh.
白状。
Oh, no, wait. Email, key, voice. Oh, glad, happy. That's fine. Similar thing.
Jun rei.
頻発
Okay. Hmm. It's something's wait.
鋭い
名誉。
Hmm. Oh,
隣人。生殖。電柱。
増える
薬剤。巡回。防腐剤。
透け
Get
る
it?
妖精。
林家
戒める。
る。
薄弱。
排除
捕獲。
捕獲。捕獲。
どの。
携帯
薄い。
つい。
雅楽。
春菜
春菜。
雑
雑
誌
誌。
服
Oops. Oh,
首
首
相
相。
訓
訓
戒
戒。
歌唱
歌唱。
堀
堀。
隣
屋
屋
敷
敷。衝
衝撃
撃。
開
開国
国
外国。
怪しい。
獲
獲
物
物。
敷金
金。
隣国
隣国。隣国。
合
合
唱団
唱団。合唱団。
ギダ
兼ねる
兼ねる。Oh, no, wait.
駐留軍。殿様
うん。
しきりに
入りに。
吐いた
開いた。開いた。
排気
中
中
日
日。
兼用排
排
出
出。排
排水
水。
柱
柱。あ、wait. うん。
ガチ。兼業。
茂る。
内堀り。
了解。
警戒。かける。
外堀。読書。
薬剤師。
不幸。
Or how do I find
営業。
しく。
衝突。洗剤。
近隣。透明。
獲得。獲得。
獲得。
獲得。獲得。
拉致。消化。
Something like Azuaru. Something's missing. Oh.
携わる
携わる No. This one's probably one of the
Zai. 巡査
中旬
Okay.
Kezuru. 恵む 交代 類
募金 削除
小石 類打
Reader.
戦闘
Ento. Hmm.
狙い
臨
臨
界
界 仮装 Oh. Wait,
仮装
仮装
戦う 崩壊
崩壊
あと 聴力
大抵
大抵
累
累
進
進 Oh wait
遺
遺
跡
跡 Leave behind Oh One.
台湾
Taiwan.
高専
Osen.
眉間
Miken. Oops. What? Okay, fair enough. Oh. What? Hmm. Oh.
知恵
Chie. Uh-oh. So,
契約
Keiyaku.
掲載
Keisai. Sai.
漁師
Yoshi.
応募
Obo.
葬式
Oski.
終身刑 弾力
Danyoku.
死刑
Ge. Eh? Oh. Kind of.
下旬
Yejun.
派遣
Aken.
望む
Nozomu. Oh, what? Oh no. Oh no. Uh-oh. It's not that. Wait, is it? No, it isn't. Lost it. I have a block. Hold. Professional writing. Remember what the Oh yeah. When are you visiting your When are you doing the visit? Pretty sure this is writing. Oh, that's tenacious.
執筆
Pizza.
Kinu.
Inu. Tomorrow's first day. Definitely notice any differences so far. Been here one day. Oh, I see. Wait. Have you never traveled to the US? Or have you? Hinder. Is that hinder? Yeah. No, it's not hinder. You did for summer camp for 2 weeks around 7 years ago. Oh, okay. Oh no.
ジン。
香水
Sweet.
Toru.
Toru.
聴者。陣
いい
営。
ね。
弾丸。
ホームル
ホームル。
弾む
弾む。
刑罰。
Oh. Oh boy. Definitely K.
刑事
Keiji. Straight? Oh, Keiji. Hmm.
ケーキ。
ケーキ。
掲げる。
募集
Nope.
刑
刑
務所。
務所。
臨時
臨時。 Nope.
Skau.
Hmm.
Mayu.
Mayu.
Sogeki.
How does tipping work? I have no idea. I think tipping on YouTube is kind of like bits on Twitch, I guess. You get a message and that message gets highlighted and then they take like a percentage of it and then I get a percentage of it. I don't remember. No idea.
反抗する 玉
Tama.
投資
Toshi. Hey, you know what? It really is like IRL, honestly. Yeah. If you in Oh, wait. Oh, you're talking about Oh, I'm sorry. Same difference. Actually, same difference. Yeah, IRL is the same difference. You take a percentage of the service. Usually depending on where you go, 10%. 10% is tipping. It's the same difference. The idea of like internet currency is very similar to tipping in the United States. You tip because you want the service that you pay for, you already pay for, but you're tipping because you simply want to give a percentage of the a percentage additional. So when you tip in IRL, they'll say it on it. Since you're traveling with your parents, that's not a big enough party, so usually gratuity is not included. So you just tip based on a percentage of the service, and it's usually typically revolving around a service. The reason why one of like the more generalized reason why tipping exists in the United States is because that is how service workers get supplement their payment because they don't get paid as much, making the assumption that tipping is involved. The typical lowest bottom line tipping is 10%. Fancier areas 15 to 20%, and then like sometimes your go-to places maybe higher. When you're purchasing something nowadays in like the city area and whatnot, how the tipping works is it comes up as a prompt on the electronic device that tells you what percentage of the paycheck do you want to pay. So it starts at no, like it's probably gonna give you like no percent, like no tip, 10%, 15%, and 20% as choices, as opposed to telling you what the amount is. It's based on how large the service is, what the cost of the service is. So it scales with the magnitude of your service. suck. Decrease. The
削減
okay.
ケーキ
Is no tip like saying the service was bad? Sort of. Sort of.
旬
Like, putting into perspective is the idea that many service workers in the United States, you could call it like paying with an extra step. So the interpretation from a foreigner, in my opinion, is that when you pay for something, you're paying for the entire service, right? So the entire service that is expected in the United States is the cost of the bill and the tip. That is the entire service. So like, this is where like cultural boundaries happen all the time with perspective. Like in Japan, a lot of people could argue, oh, there's no tipping in Japan because everyone gets paid an honest wage and they always pay adequately for their service and they're paid to do so. Well, psychologically, that creates subjective differences. However, objectively, there actually isn't a difference, because if you decide that the honest pay is the payment of the service plus the tip, it can still be the same amount. So for example, if someone is working in the United States and let's just say they get paid, we'll use like a hypothetical. So we'll use some round numbers. These aren't real numbers, but say $10 is worker A in a non-tipping environment gets $10 and worker B gets $8 plus an expected $2 tip, right? That's 20%. That's very generous. Let's go and use 1%, like 10%. So despite objectively, by supply and demand, right? By supply and demand and rates, despite both of them expecting $10 on average for their services. So online and other places that don't tip, they see this as a fair wage, right? Because this is constant. So the nice thing about constants, much like life, is that then the service is constant. So other things will be consistent. Your service will be consistent. So this would create a smaller range. Like, for example, no tip, and tipping thing. So their service would have a smaller range. In a tipping country, this is my personal opinions and not quite based on hard stats, more like behavioral logic. In a tipping country, the service is going to be having a wider range. But whether the country has tipping or no tipping, the overall average could be comparable. You could have two countries that either have tipping or no tipping. There's no statistical variation, in my opinion. There's nothing to prove definitively that a tipping or non-tipping country produces an overall average, above average, or a higher relative quality. Their averages could be the same, but their ranges are very likely to be different. So oftentimes when people compare it to the United States, because it would be a country that doesn't have tipping, typically right now it's very trendy to compare Japan to the United States. The average service may not be that great, really, like greatly phenomenally different. It's the how often you get good case scenarios and bad case scenarios that are compared. You can see that it's probably going to be more consistent to find a below average example in a tipping country to compare to a country that has no tipping, which has a consistency. Now, you can have a country that has no tipping that has a below average quality because they're in a country that maybe is in strife or other factors. Then this entire country will be consistently below a country no tipping. So that's kind of the idea. So in this case, when you say, is no tipping like saying the service was bad? The answer is kind of. Because it is yes. It leans towards yes. The reason is that you can also tip above the average. So like if say this person was expecting $9 plus for every $10, $9 come from their employment and $1 from as many people they serve per people they serve, right? But occasionally they can get $2 and then occasionally they can get $0. So how does this like behaviorally create a subjective nature? It gives the customer liberties and entitlement. So what does that do behaviorally? It creates a larger range because depending on the interaction between the customer and the server, the customer is responsible out of their voluntary nature to supplement the server worker's thing. So in this case, it's constantly a range of interaction of whether this person's doing well or not. And a lot of you can make an argument. Lots of times people from a non-tipping country would look at this like, well, then servers are encouraged to like be pleasant. They're forced, right, to like be pleasant. As in, one of the consequences that people talk about is in the United States, servers can, like, people who offer servers, not like only in restaurants, but in the hospitality industry, for example, they can become overly polite. Like, it's to try to get tips from the person, and it also can create backlash. So like creates desperation. So there's a wider range. What happens here is that this is a system where there's interaction between a customer communicating that the server is consistently poor, as in if a server gets employed and they consistently do not receive like or below average tipping, it is a feedback that says that the server is not doing really well. And in the service offering could push back and say, well, it's because the customers are bad, etc. So this creates a separate step of interaction between the customer and the service worker. In Japan and other countries, you can make an argument that the employers pay them well enough, so this means that they have a constant service, which means that there's an acceptance clause. You get what you pay for, and there's technically no obligation to do more than that. Now, a lot of people may argue, well, it doesn't stop you from going above and beyond, right? Like, we can pick fondly examples of Japanese people who go above and beyond their calling. So they would offer, like, let's say their thing is worth $10, but they would perform like it's worth more than $10, like $15, because they take pride in their ownership and whatnot. And it's like, that's another way, but those are good actors. They are good actors within a constant service. The nice thing about having a fixed no-tip line is there's a bottom line, right? You have to present a service that is worth the value, and it's the value that's determined. There's no opinion coming from anyone else. So that's why, in my opinion, a tipping culture creates a larger range, because the person who's offering the service also gets monetary feedback from their customers, and then the customers can communicate their feedback through attacking the monetary gains of a server worker. And this creates a huge potential point of exploit, which is the employer. So if an employer can lower the rate, or they can find reason to lower paying the server worker because they are performing well and getting a lot of tips and whatnot. So that's where, like, a lot of people cite, like, that's one of the rotten parts about a tipping culture. That's looking at the pros and cons, though. That's one of the cons. In a constant service with no tip, well, if the employer dictates your salary and no one else can help you, then if you do not get paid enough, you never get paid enough, right? And in a culture that doesn't have tipping, then there aren't people who are benevolent enough to help you in the first place, because it is expected that it is rude to do that. So that's kind of like one of the trade-offs. So those are pros and cons. So if you take the con of a tipping culture, you also have to consider the cons of a no tipping culture. A no tipping culture means that customers don't also express and empathize with another service worker. They are likely to get paid and expected that a service worker do their due diligence, which is like, it works for a country that has higher standards, right? Higher standards, relatively speaking. Oh, do, for example, servers not get paid properly without tips included? Typically not in the United States, because it is expected that the common practice is that tips supplement their salaries or their wages. And in fact, how tips are separated and shared in an operation is very different. They can differ, like, not all the time. Sometimes, like, the tipping goes into a pool and then redistributed among the server. So, like, for example, there are different tipping distribution, which I only know of some of these because I used to work like odd and end jobs that dealt with tipping. So tipping can end up being it can be pooled together, then distributed again. So oftentimes when you like tip somebody, like say someone is performing really well, that doesn't mean your tip necessarily guarantees to go to that someone. It depends on how they sort their tips. And this is where, again, more points of exploit. When you think about really bad actors and like cynicism, oftentimes the tips may never even make it. Like, this is pulling a bad actor. So we're talking about worst case scenarios, just keep it with a grain of salt. Sometimes when you tip someone and you think you're tipping them, it might never get to them because it depends on the employer. So when people try to compare like, oh, what's the benefit of tipping or what's not the benefit of tipping, and then what's the benefit of having a fixed service thing, a lot of times it comes down to the employer. So one of the biggest gaps in like morality or ethical concerns regarding services deal with if you no tip versus tipping, how many times or how frequently is this vulnerable to employer exploit? And that's where I would have to concede. I think there's a higher variance in employer exploiting server workers, at least in my opinion. There's more opportunities to be exploitative when it comes to this compared to like a fixed value. From the customer standpoint, no tipping means you settle. Tipping means you have influence overall from a customer standpoint. So that's a different thing. That's a different perspective. So like a customer can communicate whether they appreciate someone's service or not, whether it's obligatory or not. And then in the no tipping side, it is a neutral ground. So if you give gifts and like tipping, it comes with like apprehension because it can come off like it's inconsistent how that's communicated. So you always am neutral. So if you are really, for example, if you're a really nice person, you still don't express it in that way. It's purely business, right? This creates a business atmosphere. And that's good and bad depending on where you are. For myself, I don't call it tipping most of the time, but anywhere I go, I genuinely like, if it's not money, it's a compliment. If it's not a compliment, then it's compassion. So born out of this tipping thing is the idea that you have a responsibility to be a good customer, and the server is treating you like a good customer because there's some dependency on what the transaction is. Here, you don't have to, and I know like in Japan, like we're using Japan because that's a very trendy example. It's always like really good when it's good, right? However, if someone doesn't, if you don't like the service, you also can't be upset about it either, or you can't say anything about it because you got what you pay for. So that's kind of another thing. In the United States, it does happen for better or for worse. You can communicate that you had a bad time, which that's bad or good because some people do better when they are receiving feedback, right? So that's kind of one of the things. There's risk involved, there's stakes involved in the United States, and it's business only in tips. Like, we're again not picking bad actors and good actors to compare the two. When you think of the norms, ultimately a fair wage is a fair wage, right? The logic here is, do you get paid up front the $10, or do you get paid $9 and expect the customers expect a behavior that makes up that cost when everything is equal? when the economy and the imports and the cost of living is equal, ultimately the behavior is one extra transaction. And if you have one extra transaction, to me there means that there's going to be more noise. Maybe it's just your experience so far, but you really feel like service staffs are trying hard to make customers happy. That's the consequence. They act more enthusiastic towards us and try to refill. Yes, because of the tipping service. And when you think about like a lot of times people think that money is disingenuous, right? It feels like it's overly, like they're pressured to do so. That's kind of what service workers are. Like what I mean is that's kind of what is built in this system. So like you can have someone who's cold if you want here. The idea is it $10? Like if it was $30, then you would probably expect someone to be even better, you know, warm, right? Compared to the $10. Here, if you have someone, you can have the difference between someone who gets $9 plus 3 versus someone who gets $9 plus 0. So the range it can create a large range. So when you get a good service, it feels like they're consistently trying very hard. And then when you get just someone who's having a poor day or is not cut out for the thing, then your experience gets really low too, which is what creates this like variability. Update, you have finished Wakotabi for the time being, or at least up to the cliffhanger they leave you on? Oh, interesting. Beth, congrats. Yeah, so that's kind of the idea, Mika. You're going to feel, and then hear me out, I'm not saying you're not going to encounter the opposite, where someone just like, they give you your menu and they don't like come back for 30 minutes. It can happen. The range in a tipping country, the range is larger than a non-tipping country, in my opinion. But your average, when you spend a lot of time in a country, and if those countries are indeed equal, despite the variation, their average experience overall is going to be very similar. You're going to have good and bad times. The idea is, are you someone who's willing to gamble, so to speak? Gamble on the idea that you're going to have an above average experience? Or you prefer something consistent, right? If you prefer something consistent, I feel like having less movable parts makes it, you sort of want to see the opposite now and doesn't come back for 30 minutes. Sort of reminds you of experience in France, actually. Yeah, I'm not sure, I can't speak for other countries, but I can tell you that one of the things that make people non-tipping like countries come to the United States, what's very uncomfortable is sometimes to them it can feel fake, right? Like sycophanting, kind of like brown nosing. And it's hard to know whether it's because they want money, like your tips, or they're working hard for your tips. It's a idea of perspective. If you're working hard for tips, isn't that part of a service job? You see what I mean? Like, Mika, like if you're working for a monetary incentive, isn't that the idea of a service job? Like, for example, if you worked hard and there are no tips, are you, as a customer, are you supposed to feel less guilty or uncomfortable? Because to me, I grew up in a tipping country. So if I go to Japan, right, like this is where the foreigner culture happens a lot. Like a Japanese person would say like, oh no, tip, like this is my job, I take pride in my job, I ask for a fair price for my job, and you shouldn't have to tip. But from me, from a tipping country, like I don't care how much I paid, like okay, it's $15, that's a fair price, I totally agree, but I want to give you more than a fair price. Like that's kind of the idea. So feeling uncomfortable is kind of the idea, but it's uncomfortable because it's not expected that people express it that way. Like for me, like when I see a price, if I can do better than that price, I would tip it. So the good actors and bad actors balance out, like for sort of like for myself, when you're in a good place, like obviously economy varies in the United States, like the classes vary in the United States, but for myself, like I feel uncomfortable and guilty when someone is performing above and beyond what they're asking for, because I get to choose how the pricing to some extent. That's why the tipping culture is different. Where like if you say you're doing a $10 job, like if you ask me, hey, I gave you this product, it's $10, and I'm telling you it's not $10, it's worth $15. Can you take my $5 because I think you did $15 for me? That would be, it can be constituted as rude in a non-tipping country, because the person who's working know what a fair price is, and they would humbly decline. Obviously they would humbly decline, but the idea is that for the worst, you know, you can have bad customers, but you can also have good customers, or customers that want to do that. And that's kind of where like things get a little weird. And I talked about this quite a lot before, because we've gone to countries that are non-tipping. I'm actually kind of curious how many. I think there are more countries that don't tip than tip, maybe. I'm not entirely sure now that I think about it. Usually the United States is used as an archetypical tipping country, and then they typically then are compared to the average of a non-tipping country. So the thing about no tips though is that we have to remember, for every example you pick around an average, right, you can choose to pick something that is outside of the range of it. And oftentimes, when, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, I don't know the statistics, in my opinion, most of the time the negative examples, they stick out a lot more. And I'm not going to speak for other people, but for myself, right? Before you go, here's the thing. For myself, when I think of this, when the negative stuff, it also helps me appreciate those who go above and beyond. And that's the glass half full and glass half empty kind of situation. One of the behaviors that Americans have a lot of time is when they go to another country and it's above average, like say their average experience is down here and they encounter all above average from a different country, they want to show their gratitude. So that also comes from the idea that there's a tipping culture. If it was a no tipping culture, you pay for what you get. That's kind of the idea. So if they perform below, you never come back. Like there's no variation. So if they suck at it, then they suck. It's not like they have an off day or a good day. They simply know what they're providing, and they're not expected to do more or less than what they're supposed to do. So that's kind of my day. On that note, you'll head off for food. I wonder how this time. Yeah, definitely share, Mika. I actually think that's really, really interesting to hear about what you think about service workers. Anyways, thanks for the opportunity to chat. Good luck, good luck. Good luck with tomorrow as well. If I don't hear from you. It was a good place to stop. Now you can focus on reviews since you were getting in over your head. Oh yeah, now you can like have some breathing room, right? I think the Wakotabi team, I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but I think whatever they have set up is a good way, like it's a decent way to make it so that the learning is a little bit more a paced for the learning experience, right? Because you have to practice still. How would I feel about daily summaries of the days go? Sure, Mika. You, as long as it doesn't like disrupt, right? You should be doing like, in my opinion, you should be doing these things for yourself. Like, it's not the idea that you're doing daily summaries for someone else, but again, I do encourage that if you're not already doing it, sure, I could be a reason for you to do daily summaries. But generally speaking, I would say you should encourage yourself to do that for yourself as well. Like journaling is an incredibly cathartic and possibly very useful skill in the future. Like when you work and have an employer and have to study at university, being able to record keep about your daily things can become invaluable. So, but if I am a reason, then definitely go do that. Yeah, like the class channels. Yeah, for yourself, obviously, discreetly for yourself. And then in the future, when you do all these things, it's easier to explain to other people. Like what I mean is, I do daily summaries all the time for myself. So if whenever someone asks me, "Hey, what happened last week? Like, did anything happen?" I can choose to disclose that. It's an adequate way of practicing. But when you're going to work, you're gonna have to keep journals and logs and whatnot, anyways. So it's a skill that will it will challenge you to whether see how well prepared you are in the future, because when you get to a point in your career where it's incredibly difficult to keep track of everything and you haven't developed the skills to already do that, it can be a learning lesson. Personally, if you already start doing that at a younger age, then that becomes an invaluable skill later. I mean, especially when you get older, there's lots of things going on. Yeah, so, but I would be more than happy to like be involved in your daily summaries of your days. Like, you were really starting to fumble through the reading and sentence construction. You figured it out, but you do need to practice. Yeah, Beth, I hear ya. That's kind of, I said this quite often when it comes to like learning Japanese and Chinese lately, or most of my things. I spend like 80% of my time practicing and applying the things I learn. I don't actually spend a lot of time learning things. And what I mean by that is my separation is that when you learn something, it's new, right? It's new exposure. Or you can, I would even argue, short-term exposure. And then practice is the life part, right? The habit part, and that's everything else. That's your scalability, which is what you're talking about. The scalability, when you're starting to fumble through things because there's a lot, it's starting to stack up. You try to find the scalability. Address scalability is through practice. And then refinement, right? Refinement and iteration. Iteration is through practice. If you're constantly learning, you have less and less time to do refinements and stuff. So then a fumble becomes a tumble, and then a tumble becomes a stop, right? It's kind of like when one of your wheels fall off, do you keep going or do you stop, take a deep breath, fix the wheel, and then continue, right? You could keep going, and that's kind of how I feel a lot of times when it comes to the hustle culture, the internet hustle culture. When something goes wrong, sometimes people don't slow down. They just keep going, and eventually they find that they end up in a rabbit hole so big that it's unscalable. They no longer can scale the problem anymore. You did plan to do daily log things here. Just wonder if you want to be in on it. Whatever you're familiar, like Mika, you get to choose. Like I am excited to hear. I mean, I would ask questions. So if you already write those logs, you can probably answer those questions. But feel free. It's your prerogative if you want to share or not, Mika. Yeah. So I think the whole idea of making language learning into a live service is kind of novel. Like what I mean, not novel. It can be very appropriate, especially when they're trying to like meet forward ending. The downside, one of the cons about like making a like what Wakotabi team is doing is that they have an uphill battle with people who don't practice. So like Beth, right? When you think of needing time, I need time too to practice. I need time to practice. However, that doesn't stop. Like if we take it from like, let's live outside of ourselves. I would say still the majority of their target audience, like what the Wakotabi team, the majority of the target audience will be impatient. And here, this is what impatient means to me. A person is impatient when they are upset that they think they know everything. That to me is one of the major sources of impatience in this age, right? And oftentimes impatience also mean a lack of practice. I'm not saying it's always that case. It's more like a degree. A person who is impatient, who is constantly upset and believe they know everything there is to know, so that they never have to practice anymore because they're getting reduced, diminished return. And it is possible. It is possible for someone to be too patient, right? But a person who is upset about being slow is not the same as a person who is too impatient. These are contrasting behaviors. So oftentimes an impatient person can argue that they are patient, but they keep saying they're upset it's too slow. That's hypocritical. It's a paradox. If you are a patient person, you would not be upset about it being slow. You would simply state that it is slower than the thing is slow, not that they're upset it is slow, right? Because an impatient person naturally would be upset that the thing is slow. When they keep telling you that they're not upset and raising a funk about it, then they are not patient enough. Now, for a too patient person is someone who practices way too much, right? They practice a lot and they get diminished return. Like if they are nearly 99.9% accurate and they continue to practice that, then their growth might hinder themselves by constantly staying in the comfort zone. So that it does exist. To me, they are unlikely to be the same person. However, with the same person regarding one thing. A single person, though, any single person will have things that they are too patient about to their liking and patient about to their liking. And it's a great idea to understand which of those things they are. And when it comes to like learning another language, I find that more than 50% of the people are impatient. It's under the impatient category. Like, what's too patient? The same person, there's a excellent correlation of two patients, and one of the two patient people, like, this is one person. What are they too patient about? Methodology. They are impatient about content. That is the same person. I think the most common correlation right now, I would say, in the language learning community is the two classical problems. People are too patient with their methodology. So when something works, they have no reason to learn more about how they work, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it ain't broke, don't improve it, right? So when someone says, oh yeah, I'm playing Wagotabi, right? And the Wagotabi team will probably have encountered this tons of times. Wagotabi team's first criticism is, oh, the content, it's too slow. No one's going to ever become fluent going as slow as Wagotabi team, right? They put out things, they don't cover enough things, while at the same time, this person will then say something like, the criticisms is based on the idea that you only use Wagotabi to learn. But you only stop at one method, because they expect that they only want to invest in one method and be patient about it forever. They don't ever want to learn other methods and combine them and whatnot. So it's usually the same person. Usually these things are wild because it makes the person upset about themselves. Like, they would be impatient about content, but you don't have to only use Wagotabi. You don't only have to use Anki. You don't only have to do WaniKani each day. You can swap up the methodology. The thing is, most people become too complacent and comfort in their singular task. So this is one in the same people. The argument that like content is not good enough to become fluent or fast enough to become fluent is also that they lack practice in exploring their methodology, right? And to me, that's kind of what I do most of the time. Like, the content will come as it comes because the content's not going anywhere. So whether I encounter the content or not, the idea is I need a lot of practice. And if I am going to spend my time practicing, I better start practicing a lot of ways to engage in the content, because that's when my accuracy and my consistency will go up, because I have less and less points of failure in my understanding. And that's what I feel the Wagotabi team is trying to do. They're trying to like create slowly different ways, right? Constantly different ways, so the content moves slow. But the methods continue to diversify. So as the content goes up, with every additional method, the content gets doubled. It gets tripled, right? If you have one method, it multiplies by the content. If you have two methods, it multiplies the entire content base. 3 methods. So that's kind of like if you learn one language, it's great. You can stick with that. One method of expression is great. But the moment you learn 2 languages, everything you've learned with that one language gets doubled over by that second language, right? So you're multiplying it's multiplicative how greater scalability you have when you have more methods. So that's kind of where the practice comes in, at least in my opinion. Practice comes in because the moment you attack a different way, it's gonna scale. It's gonna be like gigantic scaling. So it's okay that you've been on this language journey since before Corona. But since the little C, sometimes you think you're going too slow. You gotta find your way, you know? Like, my thing is, what is too slow? So, too slow is when you're acing everything. That's too slow. So if you're not acing everything, then it's not too slow. What's too fast? Too fast is when you go below your threshold of comprehension, which I typically, for myself, my standard is 80%. So when you start like tanking, right, it keeps tanking and it's not increasing, then you got to slow down. So what I mean is, what is between too slow and too fast? Well, over time, your accuracy is supposed to go up, or whatever you're doing is supposed to go up towards this. And the moment you get closer and closer to, like, say, for myself, I keep it around 80%. So when I do 80%, it's not like one-to-one how I gauge 80%. But what I mean is, if I am operating at my best, and 80% is what I muster, that's the sweet spot for me. That's the sweet spot. So when I go faster, if I'm worried that I'm accelerating, my 80% is gonna start dipping. It's gonna progressively get less and less consistent. If I'm slowing down, like I'm consistently slowing down, my accuracy can go up. Now, there's also the thing that most people focus on, where they keep their accuracy the same, like their approach the same, so their method stays the same, right? Their method stays the same, and they're hoping with everything the same, their accuracy goes up. And that does happen. That's the classic thing that people focus on. Slowing down and speeding up is not what people typically use to help them get higher quality learning or like stability. They typically believe that when you improve, you keep pushing to improve, and that's how you improve. And I agree with that. That is the most classical way. The question is, are you operating in a area that keeps you pushing forward, or are you slowing down too much, right? If you're thinking about slowing down too much, that means you're constantly operating at your max and you're not pushing hard enough. So the idea is you can use your results to see from time to time whether you need to speed up or slow down. If you're constantly getting higher and higher marks, then you have to make it more and more difficult for yourself. The idea is it has to be difficult enough, but not too difficult. And that deals with your behavioral maintenance. For myself, once I dip below 80%, I'm like, I gotta slow down. Let's get back to 80. Can I get a solid 80? Because the idea is your new 80 is not the same as your old 80. I think this is one of the problems that I have with people, how they evaluate. What they do is they would say something like, oh, I used to get 80%, and now I get 90%. Yay me, I learned something, right? But then if the 80% becomes 70%, you're like, now I got stupider, right? I got stupider. That's not true. That's usually not true, because these 80, not only is it not exactly clear whether this 90% is because you learned more things or the 70% is because you got stupider, because you have to standardize the 80%. If you're responsible for, say, like you're responsible for 1,000 kanji, for example, right? If this involves 5,000 kanji, you are no longer performing at the same efficiency. Like, what I mean is 70% of 5,000 is still greater than 80% of 1,000. 90% is dramatically greater than 80%. So what has happened here? There's often, when someone sees a spike in their performance, their methodology changed. So their overall process and efficiency went up, as well as learning new things. Usually when you have someone who's consistent methodology, this is how I like discern between someone who's more focused on exposure to new content versus working on their process there. Because when you have someone who's an 80% student, they will continue to be an 80% student. Does that mean that they're not learning anything? No. It means, like, if they are an 80% student and they are studying a subject, right? And then they're still an 80% and that subject increased in volume, that means this student was able to learn something. But the learning deals with its content. Because 80% of the new volume is more. They have learned more. This, to me, is internet net speak. This is the net perspective of the internet. You hope... I can't spell perspective. You're hoping that you can maintain the 80%. So, like, if you're getting 85% right, you have probably an 85% accuracy. Beth, if you continue to play Wagotabi and continue to get 85% accuracy, that means you are successfully being consistent about your learning method, because you are maintaining the same method or a similar method, and you're constantly learning and juggling even more volume than you had before. So it's not getting worse, and it's not getting better in the way of your method. But you are learning a lot more, and you're practicing a lot more. The whole idea of practice is when content stops flowing, and your accuracy then would go up. So I think a lot of times, and hello there, Sing Sing, sorry. We're kind of in the middle of a fun little topic. When accuracy goes up, to me, how accuracy and precision is often most accounted for in practice. And when you're practicing, your volume stays the same. Your volume as in like novel volume. So what I mean by novel, just to make sure, novel volume means, like, say you have N5, right? This volume is constant. And then when you practice that, you are expecting your accuracy and your precision to go up. That is the natural expectation. So that's when you know you have improved in your constant volume. It gets complicated because most people, what they do is they push up volume while they're trying to increase their accuracy and precision. And in a perfect, beautiful world, you're hoping that as you're learning more, somehow your accuracy and precision is also going up. To do that requires that you also practice better. And that is usually involved in methodology. If your method doesn't improve or change over time, rarely does your accuracy and precision increases with its volume. So how do you get better at that? What typically, at least in my opinion, and you clearly recognize that, Beth, is to take some time and reduce the rate of volume increase. So oftentimes what I would say to someone who's like trying to hustle along in their perspective and they're worried if they're going too slow or too fast, the question is, are you maintaining your accuracy? If you are, while increasing your volume, then you're not too slow. You are going just right. Now, if you want your accuracy to go up, if you want your AC to go up while you're increasing your volume, you can do that now. Because as long as you can maintain your accuracy while you're increasing the amount of volume you need to remember, there's opportunities to increase the accuracy while the volume is increasing. There's another way to increase accuracy, which is what you're suggesting. You lower how quickly your volume is going up, right? So your new volume, this is new stuff. You can lower the pace of your volume to allow your accuracy to catch up through practice. So now you're spending less time learning and more time practicing. This is how I feel like it's a loss in translation whenever someone, not you, Beth, obviously, but this is the kind of dialogue that I would love to have a conversation with anyone if they're interested. A lot of times I hear things and they tell me about their results, what they do, like, oh, how's your week? How's your month? And then when they describe what they're expecting, oftentimes they want the cake and eat it. They typically, when you're learning something, you think that accuracy is going to go up as high of a volume as you can get. Your accuracy typically gets lower when you're moving too fast. So in Japanese and Chinese, that's what happens right away. Like someone's like, oh, okay, I need to learn 2000 kanji. Okay, what if their thought is, well, I only have enough time. I only have 3 months in the year to study. I guess I'm just going to slam all the 2000 kanji into a 3-month period, try to spread it out as much as possible across the 2. And then they're like, okay, well, that's cool. But while they're doing it, as the 3-month comes across, they keep focusing on accuracy. They keep thinking like, oh, their experience is supposed to get easier, right? Like as they escalate their volume. It's not possible. Your accuracy always goes down when your volume is out of control. Like you have no time to process what that is. And that's what speedrunning is. Now, this is kind of ironic when Sing Sing says speedrunning. Now, speedrunners don't actually do this. And we're not talking about so hang on. I want to make a adjustment to pay homage to speedrunners, right? So there's people who run fast. And then there, the hustler. There are hustlers. Not like people who hustle other people, but people who hustle along. There are hustlers, and then there are speedrunners. Speedrunners is like greater than 90% practice. So the act of speed running is based on a low volume practice. And when I mean, again, low volume meaning low novel volume practice. So whenever you see someone like speedrun a game, right, like a video game, they have played that video game so much and they have practiced it. That's how you speedrun successfully, right? A hustler, what they do is they speedrun with no practice. So, hey, we're gonna get in this rocket without rails or any cautionary tales, and we're gonna go as fast as possible. What are you gonna do? You're gonna crash. That's what you're gonna do. You're gonna burn out and crash. So, I'm playing on Xing Xing's comment, and I know that Xing Xing is talking about the hustler, the one that runs fast for the sake of running fast. You can't, like, speed running Chinese is like running with no direction. You just want to go fast. It doesn't matter which direction you're going. It doesn't matter if you're on track, you're on a rail, or you have safeguards. You just run and go as fast as possible. That's kind of like a kid running running on the beach, right? So if a kid run on a beach, which is, by the way, I'm not saying it's always bad. There's time and place to be speed running willy-nilly versus speed running with a direction. So, like, you could imagine, here's like a top-down view, right? You can have a kid who runs really fast and get here in, I don't know, 4 hours. And then you can have a very slow person who simply methodically goes and still take 4 hours. That's kind of the difference. That's kind of what I'm describing here. In fact, most of the time, this would be the speedrunning course. So this person would take 15 minutes, right? Because and this is figurative. We're not talking about literally running a straight line. It's more like they've practiced so much that they understand how to get to their destination, how to get to their results to the point of great practice. So there's less variation. When you're simply just running as fast as possible, eventually you derail. It goes off the mark. There is a use for this, though. There is a use for this type of behavior. It's not for accuracy, though. This type of behavior, accuracy, like, usually accuracy goes down. But this is good for exploration. When you're trying to, like, spitball and shotgun and rapidly go through different types of methodology to see. So in the beginning, you would test a lot of methodology and it would take you every which way possible. So you want to go fast, right? Go fast. That's fine. This is for, like, perusing and browsing. When you're trying to increase your accuracy, doing this while you're thinking your accuracy goes up is unlikely to happen because you have no consistency, right? So to me, when someone understands these things about themselves and how they tweak it, that's when you have the best of both worlds. Like, you can choose how to balance this. For the most part, though, I would say whenever someone relearns things again, especially self-study. Self-study is tough because self-study is implying that you know how to do this. Self-study, the one thing that people aren't used to anymore is that they don't need to learn anything anymore. Like, what I mean is they don't need to decide how they learn something anymore. Oftentimes, there's enough people in this world who posted their methods or something, and you can imitate it, right? And then eventually get something nice. So that means that, in my opinion, most people spend like 80% of their time wandering like this, you know, wandering around, and wondering whether they're going too fast or too slow. Meanwhile, I'm like here most of the time. I'm like, well, all right, well, I got to do this. Once it gets to like 90%, then I can speed up again. Once it gets to 90%, then I can speed up again. So most of the time, I don't even focus on content most of the time. My question is my accuracy good enough? So I do something, right? I do something. Figure out where my accuracy is. Say the first time I do something in the first month is 80%, right? That seems good. All right, well, then if I continue in the second month, my accuracy goes up to 90%. I'm telling myself, okay, now I can speed up. Because if I speed up, I'm expecting it to drop back down to 80%. I can push myself harder. This is like, I'm not sure if you're into working out, Beth, or Xing Xing. This is like progressive overload. Where so my 90%, these things are kept same load. So it's under the same load, but with practice, my accuracy went up. So that means then I can take on more load. So this, when I push myself and it goes back to 80%, this 80% is not the same as this 80% because my volume went up. So if you give yourself enough time, you practice until your consistency goes to an acceptable rate. And then you ask yourself, how much faster can you go? Can you load on more things so that you can still achieve an adequate enough accuracy, but now you're taking on more work? And that, to me, is what makes someone patient. Because they understand they're no longer like worried, am I too slow? Am I too fast? To me, the life lesson is a patient person has grip and understanding whether they're going too fast or too slow, which makes them less anxious. They're no longer anxious because what I can say is if I keep acing everything, then I need to go faster. So I can pile on more work because I need it to be challenging enough so I'm getting more volume. So when you think of a speedrunner, especially like a speedrunner of like a video game thing, they're like pushing themselves as hard as possible because they nearly got 99.9% of the content. So they can push themselves as fast as humanly possible because the content is no longer the restriction. The novel content is not. And if you're wondering what kills a speedrun, RNG. And what is RNG? Novel variables. So when someone is so well practiced, any novel introduction into the speedrun will throw their potential consistency way off the mark. So that's kind of like, you know, bro, that's the idea of perfectionism, right? And for myself, I usually go around 80 to 90%. So whenever someone asks me like, why am I burning out trying to chase high accuracy, and then while I'm chasing high accuracy, I'm burning out because I'm constantly churning more volume. It's because it's a double whammy. One of the biggest double whammies in my opinion of the internet hustle culture is that somehow when people think of progress, they think that their amount of volume escalates while their accuracy goes up. That is lucky. If you are lucky, very, very lucky, this can happen for maybe beginner gains. Like I call it the beginner phase, right? Beginner phase and the honeymoon period. And that's usually in the beginning. So like when you're thinking about like a learning curve, right? usually it's like you hit a learning curve that's in the beginning, and this would be the beginner phase, right? And then there's a honeymoon period, and then everything else is dependent on your personality. Most of the time, people just launch back down to the bottom on their progress. Like, it's not maintained because there's no maintenance. You are unable to maintain your practice. There's no... When you have both disciplines, typically what happens is you can take advantage of the honeymoon period, and then eventually this occurs. This is where you normalize the dip and you start continuing to go, because here is where you constantly maintain your accuracy with also your volume. Let's not talk about how I study. It's very chaotic. So I'm sharing this because I constantly share this because there are people who may feel like they're too patient, which, by the way, being too patient doesn't mean you don't feel anxiousness, right? That's not, they can still occur. When you're too patient, if you're telling yourself you're too patient, not just patient enough, if you're too patient, you're going to constantly ask your question, am I going too slow? Like, I feel like everyone moves a lot faster than me, but I don't know if I'm moving too slow. Like, how can I tell? Should I compare myself to other people because they have better accuracy than me, but they are also going faster? That's kind of the two things. So the two things that I typically want to mention when it comes to going too fast or impatient, too fast or too slow, is how's your accuracy? And when I mean accuracy, I also mean consistency, precision, are different things. These are different things that you can use to measure yourself. Are you consistent in your habits? If you're consistent in your habits and it's not like declining over time, then you're moving just right, right? If your precision, like how often you nail the same results, right? Consistency is a combination of accuracy and precision, colloquially. So if you're constantly right and you're consistently right as your volume is staying the same, then you're doing great. If your accuracy is going like, if you have an upper limit, like your accuracy is 100% now, and you have no efforts in creating your habit, then there's room for you to speed up. But oftentimes people use accuracy, consistency, and precision as a readout for how much they learned, which is not true. This is a very big misconception, in my opinion. How much you learn is not accuracy, consistency, precision is not heavily a reflection of learning out. Some of it is, some of it, but it's not a great readout for learning. Learning deals with volume control. So, like, if you know, this is where other people use like things like, oh, if you know 4,000 kanji, 4,000 is greater than 1,000 kanji. Yes, I agree. This is how most people say, oh, that means you learned something. I agree with you, right? Learn something. This does not measure your performance. This measures your progress. And oftentimes people simplify this and think that progress is equivalent to performance. And that's where the math falls apart, because performance and progress, in order to compare these two, they have to be with respect to time. So when you factor in time, how's your accuracy over time is a performance measure, right? And you can sort of measure your progress with accuracy over time. Not the pure accuracy with no specific time in mind. Is accuracy over time. When you want to measure progress, is accuracy over time per volume. So now you understand, now you, with accuracy over time per volume, which is really complicated, by the way, hence why I don't really talk about it, because it's so hard to imagine how you're going to increase your accuracy over time as your volume also goes up, because that's why you need per volume. So this is a third order, it's a third order interaction. And that's how most people are measuring their quote unquote progress and performance. I agree that they're trying to measure progress and performance at the same time, but you don't necessarily have to think of it that way. If your accuracy is going down, you need to slow down. Like in novel volume, your volume control has to go down so it makes room for you to practice your existing volume. If your accuracy is consistent, it's just right. You're moving at the rate your method is able to accomplish. That's scalability. Your method is scaling properly to the method. If you think you're moving too slow, but if you want to move faster, you have to improve your methodology or increase your practice time. So like say Beth, I'm gonna use your numbers that you have. You say maybe 85%, right? If you want to move faster, then there's a chance you can choose to increase your volume. And that is understanding that your accuracy might get lower. So when you know this, it's okay, because you know that you are actually learning more at the cost of having to juggle more, right? Your method is not going to move as fast as the volume because you have changed it. Now, if you want to keep your accuracy higher, you can try to create new ways of increasing your accuracy. So you can introduce and refine your method. Then what will that do is that it may maintain your accuracy, which is what most people intuit. This is how people believe learning happens, which it kind of does in the beginning. When you learn something new, you're hoping that it affects your method. As in, the more you learn, the better your method becomes intuitively. So somehow you are able to maintain your accuracy. Which, Beth, that's what I think you're doing. If you're able to confidently say that, oh, you know, I've been using Wakotabi and my volume keeps going, new volume keeps coming in, and then I just want to go faster. And if you go faster and you still maintain your accuracy, that means you actually, whatever your method is, it's getting better. Like, it's getting better because more volume typically means your accuracy gets lower as you're increasing. But if you're able to mitigate the accuracy drop, it means that you are also, your method is getting better intuitively or analytically if you want, as you're learning. Alternatively, you can just you can also ask yourself, okay, my accuracy sucks. Like, I don't like 85%. I want to get to 95%. So oftentimes you can decouple these. Instead of increasing volume, you're not going to increase volume anymore, right? No volume increase. You're going to increase your practice time. And the idea of the practice time is supposed to give you an intuitive route to increase your methodology if you can. Now, oftentimes people don't increase their methodology. Like, they don't do this part. What they do is they rely on soul repetition. And that means that, yes, your accuracy does go up as long as you invest in more time. Practice is time. So what I mean is, here's what most people do as well, right? If they believe their accuracy is not good enough, and they realize that they can stop learning new things and they go to practice their accuracy, what they end up doing is, the only factor that they end up doing is increasing the amount of time. And they rarely innovate on the way their methodology works. So oftentimes you can combine the two. So in both these ways, these two are the lacking things. The lacking things often is someone thinks that when you learn more volume, you magically will have your methods improve as a scaling, which is not typically true. Like, it doesn't really create that dramatic of an effect. In fact, most of these people would say bad habits destroy their routine. And bad habits are something they intuit as opposed to manage. And in here, when they do repetition, this is the Anki problem. This is the Anki problem. They believe that, okay, well, the volume is too high, so we'll stop doing the volume and we'll increase the amount of practice, right? That will get so big if you do not end up intuitively, if you're lucky, intuitively make your methodology better. There's no scalability. So at some point, you'll be studying and the volume would be so big that you just don't have enough time to practice all of it anymore. That's the no problem with Anki. I don't know what you mean, James. I think you came in at a very... I don't know what you mean. But anyways, so the idea is that the person using the tool is having a scalability problem. Thinking you dislike Anki, that's fair. It's, you know, there's preferences. And the idea is, when we think about Anki, in my opinion, the ones that have the problem, I don't know what James mean by no problem with Anki. Maybe they're speaking for themselves. But the people that I typically encounter that do have a problem with Anki, not that Anki has problems, is the person having a problem with Anki eventually. Is the idea that they believe their methodology doesn't need to change in order to fit the scalability of their practice time. And then the other way is the blasting way. The person believes that if they increase the volume of what they learn, somehow it will create their method will scale with it. And to me, I'm biased here, so I'm not going to beat around the bush. Most of my time is invested in understanding how my methodology changes when I'm, or could change while I'm practicing. Actually, most of the time I do spend 80% of my time practicing, because it typically offers me the most opportunity to work on my methodology to scale to the volume. So I have to save time, right? Scaling to that. And when I think about volume is usually lower on my end because I'm more focused on methodology. But when I'm learning my volume, I'm also focusing on methodology, because it's easier, in my opinion, to intuit other things personally. And the only argument or supporting evidence I have for that it is easier right now, for whatever combination of habit formation you have, is easier to intuit focusing on accuracy while increasing volume, or increasing your time to practice, is that most people do that. So, like, if most people do that and they think they don't have any problems with Anki, for example, like James, then they can proceed to continue doing that. I'm taking that as a confirmation of my null hypothesis. So in order to challenge that notion, I do nearly the thing that is not usually considered conducive. which is focusing on methodology. And that's what I have been doing most of this time. Did I lose or gain as much as someone else that I've seen or followed? No, I have not. Not that I am aware of. I would say the gains, for example, the objective gains, are negligible. Now, there is a caveat to this. The subjective gains are very different. Like, I'm consistently happy. I mean, I'm not anxious or worried or something like that. I'm not burning out or having concerns about meeting certain things. That's a different story. People can power through that, right? Like you can go and play video games to offset your subjective burdens from studying and whatnot. I don't. So that's a choice. You use your time, right? This is what I think. When someone says, like, I still don't know what James means, but I don't ever say I don't have any problems with anything. I always have problems with something. I always have positive things with something too, because I'm always evaluating those things. Going around saying that you don't have something or do have something, in my opinion, is exactly illustrating my point. It's easier to do that than scrutinize the things you're doing, right? So, pick your poison, I suppose. Well, it helps that you've been learning other methods for years before you start. Yeah, Beth, that sounds amazing. Like you mentioned Renchu and whatnot. You still use Renchu and you're tempted to get back into WaniKani. Oh, so you have used WaniKani. Did I know that? Did you mention that before? And then, of course, Xing Xing dislikes Anki. And then James have no problem with Anki. All of the above. Well, my thought is, Beth, to like wrap this kind of topic up today, is that understanding, like in my opinion, not that I know the answer for you specifically, understanding the factors that causes your accuracy to either go up or down versus, like, these are your readouts, right? Understanding how your readouts and like precision go up or go down based on your actions, right? Then this is based on your methods. It's a great way to like remove your doubt, or like not necessarily remove the doubt in whether you're going to succeed or fail. It's more like you have a direction. So it creates a bit of predictability. And I think that goes a long way to being successful, quote unquote, whatever successful means. I think oftentimes when people say that they either have problems or don't have problems and whatnot, and if they describe it to other people, you would get enough feedback, right? You would get enough feedback to like reassure yourself that that is the case. For myself, when someone says that, oh yeah, your accuracy goes up as you learn more, or you continuing to try to learn more, I disagree. I think that's a fundamental fallacy. It's a logical fallacy when you have to learn more that you think your accuracies can go up. It's initially going to go down. I mean, like, that's the whole nature of learning something new. If you think your accuracies can go up as you're learning more, then the stuff you're learning is not new. It's different from saying how useful your knowledge is, like how efficacious your knowledge is. And we haven't even talked about efficacy, because accuracy is not the same as efficacy. Efficacy could could be related, like accuracy could be a property of efficacy, but being useful, your skills being useful, have not that great correlation with accuracy alone. Like, for example, someone could be entirely 100% accurate in English and it doesn't help them with Japanese. Or you can have 100% Japanese grammar and not write anything. Right? So we have to remember that efficaciousness deals with application. We need to think about application and appropriateness when you're thinking about efficacy. Yet the most common metrics that people use are readouts. Their readouts tend to be some sort of measurement that is easily measured, like the time practiced, accuracy, right? Accuracy, it's usually just time and accuracy most of the time. Volume, or not necessarily volume, but a cumulative volume is the word I would use. So like if you learn 10 today and you learn 10 tomorrow, like for example, cumulative volume is erroneously used for progress a lot of times. You learn 10 kanji today, and then tomorrow you learn another 10. So obviously you have learned 20 kanji, right? If you're evaluating the efficacy of this, you would say something like, oh, well, I learned 10 kanji a day. Right? 10 kanji per day. Right? And they would call it efficacy, as opposed to efficiency, which sometimes people use the word efficiency. The efficiency is that you learn 10 kanji a day. This is not efficiency. This is rate. You're thinking of a rate. Because if you're learning 10 kanji a day and you're forgetting 10 kanji a day, then you have zero efficiency. That's what I mean. So like when people talk about, oh yeah, I got to 2,000 kanji in 1 year, and like 1,500 of it is inaccessible, then you are getting closer to efficacy and efficiency. Your 2,000 kanji per year is a rate. Rate doesn't dictate efficiency. It contributes to the understanding of efficiency. So that's kind of, so when you're asking if you have problems, right? Often when people say problems or does it work, am I going right too slow or too fast? Oftentimes it's skipping many steps to efficiency or like efficacy. So people are thinking about, is it effective? And effective requires that you understand what your application is. And that is very hard. I mean, I'm still kind of exploring that. Not that I should be a gold benchmark for that type of thing. But when someone says you don't have a problem, it would require that you be able to describe what your application is and how that's not a problem. Right? So if you're too slow, what conditions are you talking about in order to know if you're too slow? Not that you can measure something and then use that arbitrarily as a metric. A rate does not determine its efficacy. Oftentimes, whenever someone advertises an app, they talk about, oh, you'll learn 100 kanji in a month. That's effective. Like, that's really effective or efficient. Right? Like, to what end? I can tell you there is an argument for this. You could say it is efficient and is effective if you simply want to be exposed to kanji. So, like, when someone says this app is effective and efficient at 100 kanji a month, or a rate of 100 kanji a month to expose to kanji. That is the application. Then I agree with you. Its rate of effectiveness is 100 kanji a month for exposure. This doesn't tell you if you remember the kanji. This doesn't tell you what the retention rate is. Right? This doesn't tell you how much time per unit of study, right? Of study with respect to retention rate. That is what is inferred. Most people, this is what I would call, all these arrows is what I call a leap of logic. Most people assume that if you have a rate of 100 kanji per month, that is equivalent to efficacy and efficiency, because they are assuming that when you are exposed to this, you have 100% retention. And that every unit of time for study is 100% dedicated to the exposure of the kanji. Therefore, it creates a 100% efficiency or efficacy rate, or efficacy at this rate. That's the only way, in my opinion, that you can argue that the rate that an app advertises is equivalent to its efficiency, because it is 100% retaining the effect that you want, which is to never learn the kanji again. And that is what I call a leap of logic. You have to make many leaps to assume this number has anything to do with the efficiency of an app. An app can blast you with 3,000 kanji in a matter of 30 seconds if they want it. How effective is that? You don't know. They could say, oh yeah, you get to see like 4,000 kanji in a matter of a year. It's like, good for you. You have a rate of 4,000 kanji in a year. That narrows, you can divide it by 365, and then you get like the rate of kanji per day, for example. It does not, without the condition of it being effective, you do not know if it's efficacious or not. And that's to me the most common thing that's advertised to me by other people, by other individuals who believe their performance is working, their progress is working. They're measuring their progress and performance based on rates, and those rates are not contextualized to their efficacy. Like they don't rationalize how that measures their understanding. So for me, when I was going into that digression with you, Beth, is the idea that if you want to know what is too slow, that you kind of have to gather your thoughts about, so if your accuracy is 85% now, what's happening later? Like what's happening after a certain amount of time? If it's still 85%, you contextualize, you need other context. What are the conditions? The conditions may have changed, and those conditions will give you your idea of whether this is effectively too slow or not. And that's going all the way back to the beginning. If you're able to do that, in my opinion, you can make anything. You can make most things work in a way that will, I feel genuinely, will be satisfying to you. I think for the most part, these type of tools, right, WaniKani and Renshu and Wagotabi, is the trust that you have is that you understand whatever their metrics they're using, they are holistically telling you enough metrics that'll keep you going. I think that's if I had to be general, that's the bottom line. Because if they keep you going, that's also good for business. Good for business and also good for the user, right? So whether the metrics are good or bad, they're metrics, so they're objectively neutral. How you use them is very important to me. So if you're looking at your metrics and you say you don't have a problem with it, then you don't have a problem with it. If when you follow a metric and you get a performance result that was unexpected, like you performed worse than what the metric would suggest, then you have a problem with it. And the idea is a human, at least in my opinion, a healthy, intelligent, or like self-sustaining, independent human would be able to resolve that. It would be like, oh, okay, so now I can offset the metric read and discover why my performance, which is a reflection of efficacy, did not meet the metrics that I've used to determine my projected performance. That would be a great way. No, you tried the free levels of WaniKani back in Corona time? Oh, I see. Free levels of WaniKani, yeah. It's a great question. I love talking about this stuff, obviously. By all means, we can talk about this all the time if time permitted. And this also takes time away from practice, so obviously talking about theory and concepts and stuff are great to help one. In my opinion, talking about this and sharing about my ideas make me feel more and more comfortable about my techniques and my approaches to studying and learning. And I highly, in my opinion, encourage others to do so as well. Challenge other people's theories, challenge my theories, present your cases, because speaking of that is time well invested, in my opinion. Like, so I may sound incredibly daunting and overpowering when it comes to talking about the relationship between like studying, learning, and all that stuff, is because I really think it's incredibly important. Now, I hope that doesn't discourage you or other people from doing the same, because in my opinion, when you're able to do that, most of the time other things become more comforting. Like you spend less time worrying about, oh, what if I don't learn this enough? What if I encounter this problem? And the idea is, well, you've said this tons of times, you've shared this with other people, we've collaborated or discussed in ideas, and that creates comfort. It's not that different from the methods used. I'm basically commandeering methods from like solving other types of problems. Like, for example, if you have anxiety, right? If you have anxiety, depression, grief, midlife crises, legacy problems, ultimately one of the greatest boons to human condition is if you talk about those things in a manner that suits you and creates elements of control. Humans are incredibly robust at solving their problems, each other's problems, our own problems, and so on. So, and with that, I think humans do not have capped potential when they have that. It is those things, the uncertainty and like demotivation, burnout, misconstrued leap of logic, a bit of brainwashing, maybe gaslighting, overexposure, brain rot. Those type of things would ultimately, in my opinion, limit a human's potential. Kind of a morbid like tone to end up on. We'll spin it around the other way. Without those things, if you're able to talk about most things that you're thinking through, and then you're able to discuss it and talk about it, everything just feels a lot more comfortable. Like, what I guess here's something that I would love to ask of other people in the future. When I rant and digress on things or talk about things that someone else volunteers, do you ultimately feel more comfortable over time or not, despite not contributing to the conversation? If you do, then that's kind of what I'm trying to portray. When you talk about these things and you like start talking about it in a way that you're curious about the way you think or the way you do things, in the long run, you will, in my opinion, you will feel better about things, like more confidence, not in like an arrogant way, like you know the future or something, but more so it'll be all right, things will work out, and it ultimately feels encouraging. And then when you're encouraging, right, but the nice thing is these things are radiating. So if you're someone who loves to talk and make mistakes and talk through things, the people around you will typically would also feel that same groundedness, that same like comfort, like, oh hey, like this guy talks a lot but he's talking about making mistakes and how to solve those mistakes. Like, well, if this person can talk about mistakes openly and then talk about how to do think about them, I can too. And then when you do that, then you do the same for other people. So that's kind of the wonderful thing about encouraging each other. Anyways, yeah, thanks for the opportunity. I guess now what are you gonna do as far as Wagotabi goes? Are you gonna do, I don't know how Wagotabi keeps you reviewing, so what do you do in Wagotabi for reviewing? I still have yet to wait for that one. I'm waiting for their update. I'm waiting for their new game plus update. Like, this is when I'm gonna go back to Wagotabi, because I want to play the new game plus mode. I don't think they've released it yet though. I'm waiting for it. We'll have like an entire Wagotabi update thing. I'm pretty sure the last time I played Wagotabi, it was a little bit after the castle that had the master that had the listening exercise in it, the radio exercise. That one stuck out to me. Now that you are caught up with Wagotabi, you're probably ahead of that. But what do you think of the radio thing? The radio thing was pretty great. They had an exercise where you could only answer the questions by listening to the radio. I wonder how hard they're gonna lean in on that. Oh wait. This is Miracle.
Kiseki.
Kiseki.
Gyosen.
Okay. Keep
Kiku.
it. Oh, listening can be difficult. You're glad they let you repeat it? I know, right? It was kind of... I really like that mechanic. I hope they do something more with like listening to like scattered sounds and whatnot. I thought that part was really neat. Imagine what they can do. There's so many things they can mess around with. Because it's basically, in my opinion, if you take a puzzle game and you just throw on the concepts of the puzzle logic onto using Japanese, there's so many permutations you can do. What are we doing? Okay. Alright, we're gonna finish the stuff here.
抵抗する
盗聴
Tocho. Shoo. Where? This is probably like clingy or being attached to. Oops. It's not shoe for sure. Thinking of not the correct thing here. Huh. Sometimes the voices seem not quite enunciated enough, but it could just be your hearing. I don't think it is. And I actually think it's intentional. Or that's its normal pace dialogue, not slowed down. I think there was distortion deliberately to make it sound like a radio thing. So call it like a interesting practice. You know how like when you're watching a horror, like I don't know if you watch horror shows or something like that, but you know how like when you get into get into like a train, right? And then you hear the opening announcement, like the person who's like speaking through like the loudspeaker and stuff. I think there was a bit of distortion to make it sound like the thing, and I think that was why I thought it was kind of clever. But at the same time, I can understand why a game would want to enunciate, a game that's teaching another language would want to enunciate. But I think they kind of did a little bit there where there was a bit of a like a radio-ish distortion, like a speaker-ish distortion, which kind of reminds me of like playing, I don't know, I don't usually play Resident Evil games, but you know how you go through a haunted train station and you kind of hear that little buzzing sound. Obviously conflict of interest here. Sometimes atmosphere, like appropriateness, is not conducive to like ideal learning environments. Like imagine if your learning environment is related to you by listening to a haunted radio. I tell you now, if you really want to quote unquote test your English skills, man, some of the trains, when you get on a train and they like listen to the intercom, I can't make out. Now hear me out. There's this really funny New York thing, this New York joke. Whenever you get into like the New York City subway, it's shocking how well humans are great at not having to listen to enunciation when their propensity in hearing changes. But I can never, like, to me, I don't live in New York City long enough in my life. I can't understand a word they're saying. Like, it's so muffled, it's like echoey and boomy. But there's always this running joke where you're a New Yorker local when you can understand the subway intercom system. And I totally agree. Oh, another one would be like in New York City there are apartment buildings and they have intercom systems. So they have intercom systems, kind of like you ring the doorbell and then they talk to it. I can't understand a word they're saying. Like, it's so staticky and peaking and whatnot. So usually what whenever we visit, like if we have a relative or friend, we would buzz the intercom, right? And you would hear the person's voice. And all I think about is, does that person sound like the person that I'm looking for? If it is, then that's it. Otherwise, I can't understand a word they're saying because the quality of the intercom is so different from, like, for example, right now we live in this type of space, right? Like, whatever my mic quality is right now is probably pretty average. It's the average expectation. But then when we play like video games and other things, the moment like distortions are thrown in, like why is this I'm highlighting this is because that's how great our ears are, or like our habit systems. We get to a point where when someone says like a word, you know, slightly pitchy, it could end up being, I have no idea what they're saying, to, oh, I'm just like that and I know exactly what they're saying. So I think that's pretty humorous point. I totally, for the record, I don't remember what video it was, but I did do that radio thing and I had to listen to it over and over again. It was very, I was not understanding some words. Like, wait, like, is that, eventually you get it, but still. Imagine listening to the radio these days. I don't even have a radio. I don't know where I would even get a radio. I guess you could go to like an old thrift store to get a radio. I think phone calls are still kind of whack. I still make phone calls. Like if you call customer service, you just don't know what type of quality of receiver you're going to get. So to me, the whole listening to the radio thing kind of reminded me of like calling customer service, and the customer service goes through an office building, which goes through many different landlines, and then, or hear me out, waiting music. I don't know, Beth, when was the last time you've called customer service where they put you on hold? This, like, you hear a song and you're like, I think I know the lyrics, but I know what this song is, but I can't understand a single part of the lyrics because the way the distortion happened from like how landlines work. There's actually a physical reason why this happens, like how landlines work and whatnot. I remember, I think Hank Green explaining this kind of cursorily, the concept of why is holding music at like customer service places are still like incredibly terrifying, like because they still use a physical system. Anyways, all right, let's get back to this. I've been delaying this because I have no idea what the read is on the right. Oh, I think I know.
執着
執着. You only need a brief time to clear your mind. 執着. And what was 執着? Like attachment to something? Okay. Whoops.
刑事
Eiji.
上旬
Oops. Not 10 weeks. First 10 days. Okay.
戻る 昭和 崩す
漁業
I don't know if Xing Xing is still here. How are you, Xing Xing? I'm kind of just gone off. Oh, I see. You have a Crimson Desert crest now. Sing Sing, have you played Crimson Desert lately? Uh,
募る 川
Ooh. Ooh. Ooh.
針
針針 Ooh. Really? Okay. That's unexpected. Huh. What is this? Like characteristic or something like that? What? Oh, wait.
象徴
Like a feature of something? Indication. Phenomenon. Indication. A sign. Oh. Huh. Not a phenomenon. Uh, yeah, the left side is definitely phenomenal. And the right side is a sign or like an indication that combined to give me. I thought it was more like a characteristic feature or something. Uh, Ants? Let's come back to this. Oh, there's only one other thing.
サイド
Idol. Heck. Huh. No. Well, that kind of sucks. Combined with Teki. Imi ga arimasu. Meaning. Oh. I still think it's like something like I still think it's going off the phenomenon. Oh, it's probably instead of a sign, it's a symbol. Same difference. To me, it's same difference. Yeah, we got the other two. What do we have? Two more. The heck? Except business? Oh, instruction. Oh, I guess we'll just call it lessons. What?
授業
Yu-Gi-Oh. Okay. Good.
服
Alright. What do we have? What time is it? Ooh, it's almost 10. We're at a great time today. There was a lot of fun discussions. Or me monologuing anyways. Great opportunity. Okay, so tomorrow looks like 192. That's okay. And then we'll have this, so tomorrow is day 3. 3, then we have a 4, and then we have another 0 day. 0 day is going to be the 1st of April, right? This is April Fool's Day. 30th, 31st. Wait. 29, 30, 31st. So this day, it's good. Good timings. Good timings. We're gonna have our methodology tentative take on Boom Pro on Tuesday. It's gonna be exciting. Get excited, folks. Sorry, I keep quoting Dr. Stone. He says, oh, the English, like the Japanese equivalent of get excited over and over again. Whenever like a problem comes up and he needs to solve it, it's finally getting exciting. Get excited, folks. Oh, this is the second day, so we kind of had to go through all this. So let's do this. Definitions. What do we have? Got the rare, air, tributes, charm, distance, expose, gesture, hinting, right, hide, instant, hedge, different type of hedge, dignity, seal, pipe, tube, cylinder, consolation, Chastise. Chafe. Rub. Slap. Concurrent. Point. Or delicious. Gentle. Or soft. Sink. Peace. Crystal. Mie. What is Mie? Destroy. Nourishing. Furnace. Harp. Alright. So let's do our reads. Oh no, not our reads yet. Day 2. Our mono keywords. Chin. Let's go shoot. Little kill. Road. Okay. That's it. Bro. Chol. Sock. Arky. Eagle. Yeah, same one from yesterday. At least seal is there. Food. Home. Tokyo. Eagle. Cho. Ma. Natsu. Toku. Saber. Sheep. Jewel. Chin. I. Shogun. Two doggos? No. Met two Jesus. road, and coat. Okay. End of 2. Okay. So, Chin, rare. Setsu, air, coal. Tribute, Shu, charm. Kyo, distance. Ro, expose. Boku, pasture. That's it. Printing. Ro, right. Cho, hide. Soku, instant. Kaki, hedge. Eat, dignity. Fu or ho, seal. Actually, fu, ho, I'm not sure. Okay. Yep. Onyomi, they are. Ho, hype. Eat, consolation. Cho, chastise. Ma, chafe. That's it. Rub. Boku, slap. Se, concurrently. Shi, point. Or delicious. Ju, gentle. Chin, sink. Hai, peace. Sho, crystal. Metsu, destroy. Metsu. It's onyomi. I'm not sure if I wrote onyomi yesterday or not. Made me question. Ji, nourish. Ro, furnace. Koto, harp. Alright. That's a rapidy duty for WaniKani. I still got, I think today Boom Pro is kind of on the longer side. So, that's a wrap for WaniKani today. If you're gonna watch this later, arigatou gozaimasu. As always, feel free to follow along, pick up WaniKani for yourself, give it a go. You're always welcome to come on by and yap, discuss, trigger a long digression. I got plenty of iterations and stuff. I actually had a really interesting question in the Discord about my finances, right? And that's a really common question. Oftentimes, what I have to say is, if something sets me off, right, like in a positive way, sets me off in a long digression, and then I start scribbling and writing, it's fairly safe. It's a leap of logic still, but it's fairly safe to say that I've answered the question quite a lot of times, or responded or interacted with the question. I think those responses and questions and kind of like things I talk about will become more and more elaborate, dynamic, and even maybe unnecessarily long-winded. Once they become unnecessarily long-winded, then you iterate, you make them more concise, and then repeat the process. It's fairly safe that I get a lot of questions, like in magnitude wise. I do respond and comment on a lot of things over the years, and despite having a lot of magnitude occurrences of questions, reactions, and things I can respond to or converse, the range of the responses, the type of questions and the type of comments that I respond to is very narrow. So for myself, in order to continuously try to improve or iterate or change up things, I challenge myself in finding more and more ways to pigeonhole and add and like kind of bend a little bit of people's words in a sense that I want to encourage them to continuously explore. So whenever someone mentions like, oh yeah, the character in this show is very great, then that just sets me off into like I don't know, the 10 priorities or conditions of evaluating a character's performance, whether it's live action or voice acting. That's kind of like, I hope that while it can be very overwhelming at first, I would say I've been getting a little bit more like compartmentalized in saying, oh, I can give you a 5-minute answer, or like a 30-second jerk response, or I could do all of them. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Encouraging people for discussions. Again, this is why I end my sentiments each and every session. You're more than welcome to come on by, share your thoughts, talk at me if you want, or make a hot take or whatnot, and definitely don't have to stay or personally, in my opinion, it would be fantastic if you participate in it. I think I stand by what I was trying to kind of suggest to the people that I occasionally see on time by time. It is incredibly powerful how transformative humans are when they feel welcome to let loose in their thoughts and discussion. I think we live in an unprecedented time where there doesn't seem to be an obvious encouragement of demonstrating how powerful human rationality is. And when tools and other metrics and whatnot, which don't feel anything, right? At least for now, they don't give you the perception. In fact, it's kind of a deep cut that there is a significant number of people who think that human perception is indiscernible from the tools that they use. In fact, there is an unfortunate and, in my opinion, quite alarming and disappointing aspect that someone can think that they would not be able to extract more value out of building a relationship with a tool than another person, or even engage in that risk at all because it's not worth it. That's kind of what I mean. I think I want to be very clear that I'm absolutely grateful for the possibly limited time that I have, but any person who is worth their salt, when they say something, I'm going to take it as an opportunity to give you the TLDR in the beginning, then expand upon it, You don't have to necessarily stay around, but I would love to hear that I get to chance to meet other people over time, or like, you know, whether it's at first impression or over time, that they are also embrace their human verbosity, their human interest. Like earlier, Mika asked me, if you're interested, I would give you a daily summary. I'm like, the question is, are you doing that for yourself already? Because if you do, then yeah, I'm on board. However, if you're not already doing that for yourself, then I really do not mind being the catalyst to encourage another person to be interested in what they're doing in their lives, like on a daily basis. When you get up, please, you know, like, I'm genuinely very requesting in a way. I don't typically like directly tell a blanket statement like you should do this situation, but definitely encourage yourself to be interested in your own lives, right? And then if you don't have a motivation to even do that, well, boy howdy, it would be great if you have someone in your life, however tangential or parasocial it may be, to encourage yourself, be interested in what's going on in your life, because it's such a precious thing, at least in my opinion. And yes, life brings sadness, disappointment, cynicism, and bad things. It also brings hope, encouragement, legacy, and compassion. So I hope that's winning out. And that's where we would end the segment, right? You're always more than welcome to come on by, test my patience. I mean, that's kind of where a lot of the usual people try to entertain themselves. Like they say something like, yo, and then some like random thing that I wouldn't get, and then try to get a rise out of me. It's like, if that's your form of entertainment, you might zone out or have to step away at the longest versions, but you're listening. Yeah. No worries, Beth. Like, you're always welcome. Like, if I say this a lot, one great test of patience is a person's happiness. So when you zone out, if you have to step away and then you come back and say, like, oh, hey, I missed something. Could you repeat the stuff back? Right? Like, could you repeat whatever you said? I kind of missed this. Or could you repeat this? I don't understand this. And then if you say that like 6 times, 7 times, I'll do it 6 times, 7 times differently. And to me, when you're around people like that, at least I feel like my best friends are like that. It's almost as though it's okay to do it's okay to feel comfortable in doing anything. And to me, that lowers the barrier to making it worthwhile to talk to other people, other human people, right? I definitely genuinely understand, especially, I'm not assuming people's gender here or like the people that I really talk to. There's actually a great statistical data mine on this that supports this theory, but I'll give one food for thought. The internet is not a platform that is egalitarian by default. Because of its nature of algorithmically sorting things and then pre-selecting people, actually, if you happen to be female or universally, typically it doesn't improve the freedom of speech and interaction. It actually stifles it. I've been working on this idea for a while, but now I recently saw someone else who actually data mines these type of things and behavior. It's quite stifling. Like, I know that the vast majority of males actually make comments and whatnot, and my thought is, if you feel stifled despite using a platform that is encouraging you to say, oh, you can speak your mind, you can have your opinions here, and you don't, living in that type of sphere can create, like, well, how should I say this? Here's the comment about this type of situation. It's like, oh yeah, sure, you can share your opinions, and yet you can't. Or, man, you can meet thousands and thousands of people, yet you're lonely. You can surround yourself with all the materials in the world and feel like you can't learn anything. I think a part of that, the undertone of part of a lot of that is missing because human interaction is absent. Like, what I mean is, it's crazy when you're able to, I in some way I kind of envy people who have influence and connections, because when you put people together, it's amazing what happens when people come together and do things. It's kind of disheartening and disappointing as of late that so much people on the internet think that they know so much and they have so much details and learn and store tentatively or manipulate so much information, and yet it rarely has any application to like humanizing it, like finding a purpose for it or thinking about something to do with it. Like, if you're thinking about the major epidemics, psychological epidemics or trending right now, nearly all of them have the undertone of not having a functional application. Brain rot, doom scrolling, comedy, memes, insecurity, anxiety, depression, attention deficit, high functioning, hyperfocusedness, boredom. Nearly all of them, in my opinion, are seen as things that are detached from human behavior. Like, as though when someone talks to another person, they don't see that in the other person. Like, for example, a good example is someone asked me, oh, like, it's amazing how you never seem to be angry or something. It's like, I get angry, I just don't show it. And the thing is that when someone asks that, it's kind of interesting to think that they might think the other person never gets angry because they don't see it, right? And then it's another thing to think that what does anger look like? Like, anger is portrayed through interaction with other human beings. So you start losing that touch. Like, if you're constantly only seeing curated content or people in a specific situation, then you no longer have the sorted like intuition to interact with someone anymore, right? And my first thought is, I assure you, when I think about people that's angry comes in so many dimensions. And now when I meet angry people, it comes in like one flavor, one or two flavors that accommodates 90% of it. It's good. I mean, from like, it's objectively more useful from someone who don't think humans have complexity to them. So like, we grow up now, and the younger we are, the more limited and specialized someone's ability to interact with someone is. Like, for example, hey, hi, you're an introvert, I'm an introvert. That's the only possibility in the world now. Like, oh yeah, you speak like this, you speak like the normal way, just like 90% of other people who speak normally online. Meanwhile, like, take it from me, I still think, like, this is a trust me situation. I still feel like every day I get on the internet and I'm going to have to explain myself. So instead of, in my opinion, trying to tell myself I absolutely hate explaining myself because I'm always like, quote unquote, am I different, or no, it's more like, all right, let's find out if I am different, or the things I say, are they actually different? So nearly every single day I get on, I think about something, I consume something that someone else would likely have consumed 100 times over. Like, what I mean is, I do doom scroll like 15 minutes before the stream to see what's going on. And then I write my thoughts and notes about them. So the moment when someone comes by and say, oh yeah, this is my thought, it's like, boy, do I have many thoughts for you. And then instead of having to guess whether my thoughts are different, I simply test. I null hypothesis test. Am I different? And I'll go do it. I watch something that someone else watched, and I start talking about it from my perspective. If that person finds it interesting or thought-provoking or haven't considered it or disagree with me, then that is a confirmation, and it strengthens my resolve to understand that I am different, right? None of that pre-assumption and assumption type of deal. I think the internet has made that very convenient. So it's a good thing and a bad thing, depending on your preference. I love being in an environment where when you sit in a room, there are 9 people who have something different to say about how good water tastes. Like, that's my natural environment. That's not to say that I won't go into a room and feel bored when 9 people agree water is good, right? That's also interesting in a way, right? And the point I'm making is, nowadays, I think most people prefer that they don't talk at all They don't share anything. They are suppressed, and they don't believe that if their opinion is not reflexive of some sort of objective metric of truth, then they're not important, and they shouldn't be heard, and they have no real reason to bring it up, which I feel it also has a gender bias, and it's so gender biased that it's pretty astonishing to say this, but I was looking at some statistics, and having like even communications with like for example females, that is super rare. We're not saying that there are more males watching like YouTube or more males watching Twitch. That's a sampling difference. It's still disproportionate that you can kind of see the exacerbation of what suppressed thought looks like and suppressed interactions, right? And here we are, we're still living in a world who we're convinced that the internet is like the ultimate place for human expression and cultural exchange and whatnot, and where it feels like each and every day it's doing its objectively focused way to homogenize everything. Like legitimately, homogeneity is great for consistency, right? It's appropriate when you want your days to be very similar, but not entirely similar. If it's entirely similar, it no longer stays interesting. So it's a great balance. I would love to see that when I talk to someone, they're like, oh yeah, hey, you know, my friend, yesterday, he had a great idea. He said, let's just go to the cornfield and stargaze. And I'm like, awesome. Like, tell me about it. Maybe I should go and ask one of my friends to randomly go to a cornfield and stargaze for once. That's kind of what I miss. I kind of miss that. I think the internet, the conversations, typically it doesn't meander anymore. Like the moment it no longer concerns someone's really narrow focus of interest, that genuine time to slow down and kind of even digress or yap is kind of seen as something that is awkward, exhausting, and unrewarding. And yeah, we're gonna try to buck at that for a little bit. I'm not sure what the future holds, but boy howdy, I would say there are a few people that I'm really happy to see. They are far more talkative than they have been in a very intelligent and self-interested way over time. And one person can make a world of difference, because that person could also become a core of its own. Anyways, that's the thought for today. Despite all the meanderings, I mean, people can come on by. You can share your disagreements with my idea of practice and studying, right? That's the whole point. I rarely ever say that I have some sort of definitive edition of the key to success and whatnot. The idea is to have dialogue so that there is openness to scrutiny, right? Otherwise, how would I grow? Until then, right, that's our wrap for WaniKani. 皆さんまたね。見てくれてありがとう. Right, thanks for watching. See you guys next time. I'm gonna get up, walk around, stretch a little bit, and I'll be back for Boom Pro. Thank you.